Hey, Joy, welcome everyone to our financial management workshop. So, Joy, thank you so much for being here with me as a moderator to help us to make this a huge success. So, how is your day going so far?
Oh, it's going great. I'm excited about all the information we're about to learn today.
Man, we got some powerful speakers. With the lineup, like people are just not, they don't even understand what's in this room. Like, this is crazy to have the speakers that we have, like people that's going to be talking about budgeting, finances as it relates to nonprofit organizations, retirement planning. It's going to be an amazing, amazing time. So, those of you that are tuning in right now, welcome to all of you. And I know you're out there on Facebook, you're out there on YouTube, and we just want to welcome you to as you join us for this powerful session. It's a workshop. You're going to get a lot of information. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat. We want to answer your questions, and so we'll be monitoring for that. But Joy, how, listen, I we had a great event last week, the client
We did.
appreciation dinner, and you came up here to visit us. So how's the weather back home in Texas?
Oh, the weather is wonderful. It's pretty warm. I mean, we feel a little cool at night, but it is great. It's great to be back here. And it's great to see all the things that, we've been able to offer. Your clients were just so excited, it was supposed to be for them, but they just kept showing the love for you. So I
Yeah,
was like,
it's
wow.
the nature of it, and the thing is, and here we are giving back again, we're giving back through this event here. And so it's just going to be a wonderful time. So just to introduce ourselves, so Joey, first, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Joy White. I am Butler's Consulting's executive assistant, as well as I'm an actress and a host, a moderator, and I'm just a communications extraordinaire. I graduated top of my class with a communications degree, and so I just enjoy learning the things I'm able to learn and also giving back to the community.
Awesome, awesome. And listen, I'm Professor Donald Butler. I'm wearing my professor hat today
There you go.
because I'm sharing some information, and I am teaching at University of Maryland Global Campus. I teach accounting, but also I run our business, Butler Squared Consulting. My wife and I, we're the leaders of the organization, but we have a wonderful team, as well as Joy, who helps us out with this as being our executive assistant and a lot of the planning in the background. So she keeps me on track, and my wife is very thankful for that. So I really appreciate you, Joy. But yeah, before we continue on, how about this, Joy? We're gonna first introduce our first guest, and before you kind of give their bio, I'm gonna share something with the audience here. These people are near and dear to me. Like, they're our friends, they are our business partners, and they know exactly what they're doing. They have a podcast, and so we're excited that they decided to be a part of this lineup of speakers. And so I'm excited that you hear from them, and grab a pen, paper, use your device, whatever you have, and jot down some notes, because you're going to get some great information. And with that, Joey, I'm going to turn it over to you to give the proper introduction.
Wonderful. Thank you, Donald. Yes, I'm so excited for you all. I met this couple in person. I mean, just wealth of information. Upcoming up first is Clifton Shanequa Stafford. They humbly serve as the CEO and COO of Count the Cost LLC. They have been married for 8 years and view their marriage as a ministry. After drowning in more than $180,000 in debt, they had a that's it type of moment that ultimately changed your lives forever. Since then, their notable passion for debt freedom and financial liberty has touched many lives, both nationally and internationally. So get ready. You may be having a that's it type of moment. This is the people who need you to listen to, okay? So we have Cliff and Shanequa Stafford.
Hello. Good
Hello, hello.
afternoon,
How y'all doing?
Thanks, Joy.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you, Donald, as well. This is
Yes.
a wonderful opportunity. We appreciate you all for giving us this opportunity to join together, and let's just talk about money.
Absolutely.
All right, so one core thing we're going to focus on today, we're going to be talking about finances. And one thing we want you all to keep in mind throughout this entire few moments that we have is that finances is less about money and more about behavior. Okay, I'll say it again. Finances is less about money and more about behavior. So that's what we're going to kind of drive through here as we talk about everything that we have to cover today. There are 3 focus areas that we're going to talk about. We're going to be talking about the discovery, where you discover some different things about your finances. We're going to be talking about the documentation, where you flesh everything out and you write all things down. Then we're going to be talking about the destination with results. And in that part of it, we're going to be able to enjoy the discovery and the documentation, ultimately leading to the part where we can really enjoy the destination that this leads us to. So for one thing we understand is that finances is a path. It's a process, right? We grow and we develop in our finances, and whether it's on the personal side or whether it's for your organization, we realize that finances is a part of what we do and a part of who we are.
Absolutely. I believe it's a part of the bigger picture more than sometimes we realize.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So ultimately, we want to bring the awareness that finances is a focus point, but we want to be more efficient in our finances. So we have a question for you.
Okay, consider this. If money was not an issue, what would you want to achieve financially for your nonprofit, church, or whatever your organization is? Think about that. Mm-hmm. What are some things, some goals that you have in mind, some desires you have? Okay, for example, would it be to purchase equipment for your organization? Would it be to hire more staff? Manpower, labor is always an important factor. Would it be to advance technology? As you know, in this technological age that we're in, that's very important. Also, or would it be to simply purchase more property so you can expand and maybe even go to a new location?
And the reality of the matter is everything that we're involved in, it requires our finances, yes. Whether it's a small component of something you want to buy or whether it's a major investment. The reality is everything is centered and at our core is finances. So again, whether it's personal or whether it's your business side, we understand that finances is a need. It's a needed resource. And so check this out. There are a total of 1.8 million nonprofits in the U.S. 1.8 million nonprofits in the U.S. And so wherever you may fit in this scale, there is over $50 billion that are in the total revenue of a nonprofit organization. So that's a lot of money coming in and out of that organization. And so we want to keep this in mind that finances is at the core, but we have to make sure we have systems in place. We have to make sure that we have things in place that will benefit not only us personally, but also our organization. We realize that your personal finances can indeed bleed into the organization. And so wherever you may be in the process, whether you're like, you know what, I haven't considered this, or I want to do better with my finances, the reality is that finances is just a process. And so we have to get involved and we have to start giving it our all. Okay. So the next question I ask you, what are your current financial habits? What are your current financial habits?
Something to think about, right?
Sure. What's one thing you can say that comes to mind when you think about financial habits? What comes to mind?
For me, I think about tactic and I think about strategy. Definitely strategy. Because it takes a strategy to keep your finances up to par, to keep everything in order as it should be.
That's right. And if you all have anything you want to add to that, by all means, add it to the comments. Let us see what you think. What are your current financial habits? It can be good, it can be bad, it can be ugly. The reality of the matter is, as we move into this area and as we continue to navigate with our finances, we realize that it's all about a process. And once we get involved, once we begin to get involved in it, we come to master and learn what works and what does not work financially. So let's go ahead and get into our first point. The first focus point that we're going to be talking about is the discovery phase. This is the discovery phase. This is where we ask questions. You know, it's said that great leaders ask great questions, right? And any question that we ask is because we're trying to get to a certain result. So this is the discovery phase. So for instance, what are some questions we can ask when it comes to the discovery phase? What do I think about finances? What is my mindset about finances? How do I view my finances? What can I change when it comes to my finances? Have I even considered my finances? These are all questions we ask when it comes to the discovery phase. Another question, do you feel stuck financially? That's personally or as it pertains to your organization. Do you feel stuck financially?
Yes.
That's a great question because the reality of the matter is, as Joy mentioned in that bio, we thank you so much for sharing that. We were at a place where we had a that's it moment. We were in over $180,000 in debt, but we had to make a change. So we encourage you, wherever you are in your situation when it comes to your finances, just get moving, Just begin to move in the process. Just begin to start thinking and asking those tough questions, because with those tough questions will come some hard answers, but ultimately they will lead to solutions. And so I'll share this statistic with you. 79% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's a very, very, very hard statistic to recognize. But the question is, where do we fall when it comes to our own finances? So there are a couple problems and solutions we're going to navigate real quick.
So with all of that in mind, one problem that we kind of, was talking out and thinking about, one problem that may be a problem. It may not be a problem now, but it can certainly rise later on as you are flowing through and matriculating through your business operations. One thing is a lack of proper financial mindset. Our mindset plays a key role in every single thing that we're involved in. If our mind isn't set on winning, on structure, on order, on a foundation that's solid and strong, we've already failed. Yeah. So we have to really consider our mindset and the way that we view all things. And one thing that we have to know, that it doesn't matter where we are, it matters where we're trying to go, what we're trying to achieve, and who's on our side. We have God with us. And so it doesn't matter if we feel like, hey, I didn't start right, I don't know what to do, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed out. There's always a solution. There's always a solution. For example, we could become educated, like something like this. This is an outlet. This is a space where you have many professionals available to you, and they're there to answer your questions, and give you some information so that you can evolve. You can put some things into perspective, right? And take a different route. So get educated, become familiar with how it all works for you. Your establishment, your organization is yours. It's personal, and you have been now named a steward over this, which means you're the manager of it. So in whichever route you decide to go, you're the one who has to set the tone, so to speak. All right. Another way that we can have a solution to this is personal finances are always personal in every situation, and our business is unique. Why is that a solution? It's a solution because it's a fact. So if I can keep in mind that what we do is personal in the way that we choose to do it, then we can find tactics and solutions that work best for our organization. Does that make sense? I hope so. Also, we can get clarity. We have to get clarity. With clarity comes understanding. So that takes some brainstorming. That takes some prayer. That takes some stepping back out of the picture and looking in and zoning in on, okay, what areas should I clean up? What do I need to do? Okay, so get some strategy. Also, if you need help, hire some help. There is much assistance out here for us. There is a lane for everybody, and everybody has some type of profession that they're involved in, and they can measure things. They can view things with you. They can say, hey, maybe if you implement this, you'll get a different result. So there are many, many, many ways to attack any problem you have. That's the beauty, and that's the blessing.
I agree. And the thing about it is, the reality is, there are some points in times where we may have down points and down moments where we don't feel like we're achieving as much success as we desire. But when we realize that, it's just a matter of recalibrating our mindset. One thing about finances, again, as I stated, it's a path and it's a process, but it's ongoing. It's something that we continue to work at, right? When you go down a path, there are certain things you discover as you're going down that path, and especially when it comes to finances, right? That's personally, that's also in your organization as well. All right.
Oh, and one more thing. If you need to hire a bookkeeper, so let's be specific. And when I said hire help, if you need a bookkeeper, if you're one of those type of people who feel like I do not have the patience, nor the time, or the capacity to have my books together, so that when that accountant comes in and view your books, you're not feeling overwhelmed and feeling like, oh my God, what have I done? You can hire a bookkeeper. That's one of the greatest forms of help that you can have.
I agree, because working in unison with the bookkeeper not only helps you know your financial picture, but it relieves the stress and the weight and the burden of realizing that, okay, now I can focus my attention more on building something else. One thing I always hear, they say, it's good to work on your business, but not work in your business, right? So yes, there's a part that you play as the owner, as the leaders of it, but you don't have to dedicate so much time to making sure things are in place. But we'll definitely hear more about that later. All right. So a second problem, the first problem we talked about was the lack of proper financial mindset. But second, we're going to talk about the lack of financial motivation. We're going to give the problem, but we're also going to give the solutions, right? And so is the lack of financial motivation. One thing we can always recognize and realize about anything in this life, outside of just finances, but just in life, there are some times where we need more motivation. There are some times where we need something to kind of push and nudge and drive us to the next place. And sometimes when it comes to finances, you may have stumbled and made a wrong purchase. You may have stumbled and invested in something wrong. You may have invested and not seen the results you desire. You may have invested in this one thing, but then this other issue came about. So sometimes those can kind of bruise us in the state where we lose that financial motivation. But one thing we want to do today is offer you the next level of financial motivation. So wherever you are, as I stated before, there is over $50 billion that goes through the revenue of any nonprofit organization in the United States. And so wherever you fit in that picture, if you need some financial motivation because you're still operating and because your organization is still functioning, that's motivation in itself.
Indeed.
Think about your why. When you lack motivation, think about your why. Why did you start the organization? Why did you move into beginning to build and hiring a team? Why are you investing the way you are? Think about it. Wherever you are when it comes to your motivation, we just drive and push you to keep on going. All right? And so we're going to move to our second point, which is documentation.
Documentation.
Oof. And this is when we write out our plans, our desires, and our dreams. Okay? So every financial goal and target must be activated by writing it down.
For example, what was the key motivation for starting your organization? Go back to the beginning. You ever hear the term back to the basics? Go back to the basics. What did you have in mind? Was it something God called you to do? Was it something you said, I think this would be a good investment? Was it something you said, the community needs this? Was your motivation to help people? Whatever your motivation is, always go back to the basics, which is the framework, the foundation, because that's where you're going to be able to gain the greatest perspective in terms of how you should build. We can't build anything if we don't have a solid foundation, and we're not sturdy if our finances aren't in place. And some people may be thinking, what does my finances have to do with my building my business plan? Excuse me. It has a lot to do with it, because you're not going to get much done without finances, right? You might want investors. You may need to purchase equipment, a building, whatever it takes. You need finances. So it's something to keep in mind, to say, why did I build this? How am I building? And where have I started that I may need to go back and tighten it up a bit? Also, what is needed financially to get to that destined place? So when we talk about what is needed financially, do you have a budget? Do you have a plan? Do you have a scope? What's your plan? What's your overall financial picture and view? If you was to step back and look in and say, it's going to amount to this, it's going to cost this, we need this, so forth and so on. You have to consider these things, and it's best to do it at the base level, at the starting point. Okay. So like I said, go back to the basics, get back to the roots, see where some things may have gotten off track, or where you may not have built something on a solid foundation. You can stop, you can pull back, and you can reinforce some things. That's the beauty about when we feel like we've made mistakes, right? We serve a God who says, that's okay. I can restore all things. All things are good, right? So whatever your motivation was, consider the picture, consider what you're building and what it takes to get there, and just stay on course. It's just that simple.
That's right. And the thing about it is, it's very simple, as you stated, but there are so many things that we can use in this technological age to help us, right? Start with the budget, begin to write things, map things out. Documentation is key, because when we write things out, it activates what we're trying to do, because it places it on paper, and then we're held accountable, right? So for instance, you may say, well, what are some things I can use? Well, for one, you can use Every Dollar is a budgeting app. Intuit, it costs a yearly fee, but it's worth investing. Google Sheets, all of these are just a couple things that you can use to simply write out your plans, write out your budget, and so forth and so on. And you may say, well, if you old school, just write on a sheet of paper and save that into your OneDrive or to your Google Docs, okay? So most importantly, every business should have a business plan, and within that business plan, there should be a financial scope, which ultimately will lead to your financial picture, okay? So, lastly, you've heard us talk about a few things, and we've having so much fun. Time is moving on us. But lastly, we want you to understand there's destination with results. Destination with results. This is where you reap the benefits of the process. You reap the benefits of your discovery. You reap the benefits of your documentation, and then now you can begin to start seeing the results and the resolve. So we encourage you to be consistent, be continual, and keep giving it your all. Wherever you are financially, make sure you give it your all and understand your why.
Keep pressing. You can do it.
Wow, wow. What a powerful message. I really appreciate. I mean, I'm sitting here taking notes, and one thing that stood out to me is going back to the basics. Like establishing your why is so important. And so you all dropped some really powerful nuggets. I gotta ask, because you two have a great dynamic or a great way of speaking with each other, presenting with each other. Share with us your testimony, you know, where does this come from? Like, this is, I mean, I've never experienced this with you guys yet, but this is my first time. So I'm like, wow.
So thank you, Donald, so much for your support, for your feedback, and for always being a great vessel of encouragement. We really do appreciate that. We do. In all sincerity, all of this came about because we were in a place of desperation. We were in a place where our life was at its tail end, and we could no longer do what we were doing financially. It was no longer working. We got married in our 20s, but we understood that there was a point where we have to make a change. And by making that change, it led us to realizing that the world needs what we can offer. Any way we can do that, we're willing to do so.
And to answer your question, Donald, all we can say is it's the Lord. It's the Lord's doing. It's the Lord's doing. And we know you know all about that. So what you see here is his work, and we're just submitted to it.
That's it.
Wow, this is amazing. So the business, tell us a little bit more about the business, what services you provide.
Okay, sure. So basically, our business is a financial coaching business, and we look to work with people that are in a place and position where they just need to make a change. We understand that it starts at the foundation, and the core of our message is solely about legacy. We believe in, you know how they say leave a legacy, but the core of our message is about leading a legacy. So we want to work with persons as young as middle school, high school, colleges, and then also young families that are just getting started. That is our passion, because we can understand that when we were in school, we were at a younger age, we didn't have the information as it pertains to financial literacy. So that's what we offer. We offer financial coaching. We offer it individually, but we also offer it in group settings. Whether small or in the big setting, that's what we offer. We also have a podcast called Kingdom Blueprint, where we kind of just have a casual conversation similar to what you saw today, but we just flush it all out.
Wow, that's amazing. I love your story. And literally, like, Count the Cost LLC is an amazing title or name of your business. So give us a little bit of background of where you get the name from.
Sure. So I'll take you right to exactly where it happened. There was one day, actually it was earlier during the pandemic, and I was at home working and everything, and so specifically sitting at the dining room table, preparing for my day, and it dropped right into my spirit. It said, count the cost. And so I went to count the cost. And so I was immediately directed to Luke 14:28, where it says, which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first, counteth the cost, seeing whether you have sufficient to finish it. And immediately that pierced me, saying, with everything we do, we have to sit down, count the cost, and from that point, we can then move into building.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Shanequa, your background as well, so in terms of dealing with finances, you both on the same page. From a woman's standpoint, tell us a little bit more about that, like how you relate to women in the area of finances.
Well, I think it's a different angle when you're married. It definitely matters when you're a single woman versus being a married woman. Because when you're a single woman, of course, you need order, you need balance, you need budgeting, you need proper planning, you need all of that. But when you're married, you have to consider it's not just me anymore. And I think oftentimes in marriages, us women, we like to look at it like that's my money, and we don't have nothing to do with that. Stay over there. Matter of fact, your money is my money is my money. But for me, it was very easy to flow with him because, I mean, he's a godly man for one, and for two, I like order. And any way you want to swing it, I love order. So I'm like, hey, if we can come together as a team and we can work together and we can put what I give, what I have, you give what you have, and we may create a bigger picture because we're building a life together. I think that's the route that we should take as wives, instead of looking at it like, no, this is mine over here. Technically, it's we anyhow. So you have to implement that strategy into your finances as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yes, I totally agree. Just, overall a powerful message. And what I'm thinking is, as you said, like people that start a nonprofit organization, sometimes they may be in service, like they want to provide the services to other people where their finances kind of get shoved aside. Can you just speak to that person for a second? Because you made some great points about that individual. Maybe it's a pastor or maybe it's a nonprofit executive, and they're like, I want to make sure I have things set up for myself. How would what message would you provide that person that maybe perhaps feeling like that they're like at a, place where they're like, where do I begin to make sure my finances are in order? I'm bringing this stuff to the ministry. I'm bringing this stuff to the nonprofit. But what about me?
That's an exceptional question. A lot of times when it comes to offering things to a mass or to a broad audience and a broad scale of persons or people rather, we tend to forget that it has to start with me first, right? And so anything that we're trying to build, it has to start with me first and me looking at things. And so, as we said before, it's really about having that serious, honest conversation where you are personally when it comes to your finances. Are you living paycheck to paycheck? What can you scale back in your budget that may ultimately help you save some money, right? Where are you overspending? Where are you underspending? Like what can you change and shift to ultimately lead to financial freedom? And so one thing that we really keep in mind that we drive, think about your legacy. It doesn't just start right now. It actually starts before you even at the place you were, because you're here because of a certain person. And so when we look at the legacy in the broad range, when we think about the future, and then we realize that with me, it has to start with me. So let me have a tough conversation, even if it's with myself. Let me look at what I'm spending, where I'm spending, and how I'm spending. And then how can I do what I'm doing differently to make sure that it ultimately impacts the organization? So yes, I agree with you. It starts with self, and it starts with having that tough conversation and dealing with those real hard results. It has to take place.
And also, absolutely, as a pastor or a leader of a nonprofit, a church or something, I think it's safe to assume you know the Lord. So you pray, ask God to show you what you cannot see. Oftentimes we can't see certain things because we're entangled in other things, right? We have so many responsibilities, and sometimes we feel overwhelmed and we're like, I'm just not catching it all. Stop, breathe, ask the Lord, trust the Lord, and he'll certainly get us on path, and he'll keep us on that path.
And it's a process. It's definitely a process. So we have to realize that we're not going to master everything initially, and we have to process it right. Yeah. Process the good, the bad, the ugly. That will help build strong muscle and build a solid core so we can continue to grow and develop.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all so much. And one more thing, I've heard, some people that lead a nonprofit says that the nonprofit is their legacy when technically it isn't. And you spoke about legacy. Give us kind of like a high level, a response to that person that may say, they want to build a legacy. What would you tell that person?
That's an exceptional question. Well, when it comes to building a legacy, I will first realize that in order to do so, you have to have an ultimate goal in mind. So like you said, some may say that the nonprofit is my legacy, but let's just think broader for a moment, right? If you say that the nonprofit is the organization, well, how about, let's look at this. How can I then expand the nonprofit organization? Can I have several locations? Can I look at doing something internationally, right? And so one thing we want to keep in mind here when it comes to legacy, we have to deal with the persons that we're focusing on to impact, right? So for instance, for a nonprofit, you may say, okay, my nonprofit is focused on helping children in the inner city, right? Well, one thing you want to do is begin to embed in the children within the inner city that your nonprofit organization affects, that may in turn doing the same thing that you're doing to then expand their own nonprofit. So I think it's a matter of providing the education, providing the resources, and really looking at things broader than just self and what's available to you. Look at it for the generations after you and lead a legacy while you're living, that once you're gone, that legacy will continue to go on. Because we are supposed to steward what we have here on earth by leading, so that when we leave from here, we will be able to lead while we still have the time to impact while we're breathing.
Impartation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think our time is wrapping up. Joy just showed up.
That was amazing. Every information, I felt like, hey, if I'm out of shape, it's time to get in shape. You know,
wow.
it's like a training position. It's time to work on the areas of fat that we sometimes call debt and fix those things. So I definitely appreciate the information, the wealth of information you all dropped. And I really took to heart, write it down so it can become a target and a goal. I mean, that was amazing. Thank you, you too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Clifton Shanequa Stafford, thank you all. Stick around because we want to make sure we address some questions for the audience, whoever is a part of this. And so Joy, I mean, that was like the first guest that spoke so far. And like you said, we grabbed some great nuggets from that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited. I'm like, okay, we got to get in order, you know, write it down. You know, it was just so much information. And, you know, for me, I take a look at it as just like some of our viewers are going to be able to say, you know what? I'm at that point in life. Like, that's it. I can't take it no more. I need to fix these things. I need to have those hard conversations and deal with what I'm dealing with. And so I truly feel like they are inspiring individuals out there to make let this year be the last of that going on, those financial areas where we're out of shape, and get in shape. And like some of our comments have been, taking accountability, how much it's key. So yes, I'm excited. This is so
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, it is. And so we have another speaker that's coming up. But before that speaker comes, Shateka Husser, I'm just going to say this. This is my sister from another mother. She's amazing at what she does. So I'm super excited for her being a part of this panel of speakers. And but before I bring her on, Joy, you're going to do the introduction of her. But I just want to share this. This is timely before the holiday season get into full swing. And you made a good point, you know, just doing a self-check to see, you know, what do I need to do, like a workout session, like what I need to do to build these muscles in the areas of in the area of my finances. So when we see, you know, these speakers, when we hear them speak, it's like, grab these nuggets and start thinking, what do I need to do to put things in place, and reach out to them. So like, count the cost, go to their website, schedule a meeting, take action. You know, because one thing that's important, that when we come to these events or when we host events, is like, what do I do with this information? Take action. Don't feel ashamed. Go, you know, just say, hey, I'm just interested to see what we can talk about, because sometimes somebody said, I don't know what questions to ask. You know, so what about that moment? You know, so a lot of times when we're trying to figure out what questions to ask, just starting a conversation is really good. And these people, Shanequa and Cliff, they are willing to have that conversation with you, the audience, whoever want to reach out to them. They have the heart to do it, and we're super excited. Listen, Butler Squared would not have anybody on this platform that didn't have the heart to help people. Number one. So anybody that's speaking here today, they have the heart to help people, and we want to see people grow and succeed in the area of their finances. So Joey, with that, I'm going to let you go ahead and announce or share with us Shateka Husser's background, and I'm excited to hear from her.
Yes, I'm so excited to bring up our next speaker, Shateka Husser. She is an international best-selling author, certified professional coach, multi-dimensional investor, life insurance broker, network marketer, and combat veteran. You know, thank you for your service. Her fast track as an Army officer and corporate executive with over 20 years of high level leadership in the logistics and retail space has afforded her the opportunities to partner not only with corporations, but individuals seeking cultural and economic growth. Her mission is to empower at least 5,000 investors in their financial growth, and she is known for her popular motto, retire before you expire. With the belief that that purpose and health and relationships and finances are the pillars of a wealthy life. She, in 2020, started a winning in wealth radio show on the national syndicated Radio One, She also launched an annual event, the Generational Wealth Symposium, with over 200 attendees in 2019. And Miss Shanequa also comes with receipts, you all. Shanequa's education includes a master's of business administration, bachelor's of science and management, certificate in professional coaching, and certificate as life and health insurance producer. So she is ready and willing to share her wealth of information. I am so excited to bring to you Miss Shateka Husser.
Yay,
Listen,
Shateka.
thank you for that introduction, Joe. I appreciate you. Awesome. Thank you for this
Welcome,
opportunity to
Shateka.
speak.
I'm
Yes,
super excited about you. I told them you're my sister, so you're my sister from another mother.
absolutely.
You're an awesome team member, so I'm excited.
Absolutely. I am as well. And thank you for having me. And just a little bit about who I am, everyone. She already mentioned it, but I like to start off with a quick little, pitch, if you will. So my name is Shateka Husser, CEO of Husser Financial Solutions, where we help career professionals to retire before they expire. So if that is you, we're the ones you hire. Our goal is to get your bank account on fire with a whole lot of lifetime tax-free retirement income that you will not outlive. All right. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to bring up some slides and kind of introduce who I am. It says that I'm in this show and I am looking for the actual share. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to bring this up really quickly so that you guys can see my slides. All right. 1 second. All right. Can you see the slides? Let me know if you can. All right. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go with the actual presentation. And all the way up to the top again. All right, so for today, I am Shateka Husser, as I already mentioned, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to build a retirement fund starting from zero. Okay, so the goal really is to give you some understanding about how to do that, because a lot of people have questions about that. And I know that we're talking primarily to the church and the organizations, non-profit organizations, to be more specific. So today's discussion, we're going to talk about vehicles that can be used to start your retirement fund. And of course, the next 3 steps on how to do that. And then the least expensive way to set up your own retirement account, what should be considered. And then, of course, the 3 biggest obstacles impacting financial goals: living too long, dying too soon, or becoming ill. We'll cover all of these in different ways throughout this presentation. So who we are again and what we do. We're definitely, headquartered right here in the Malton, New Jersey area, where we actually provide financial solutions as a financial services firm. And we provide, financial strategies, retirement planning, life insurance, and debt solution to our clients. And again, we are powered by First Financial Security, which is a national brokerage that's been around more than 13 years. And we together are helping people to achieve financial security and peace of mind. So if you retire today, would you be able to maintain your current lifestyle? That is the question. Have you saved enough? Do you have enough money? Do you have a strategy? How much would it cost to retire today? There's a lot of questions that are in the minds of individuals. So we're going to move right on. So with that being said, what kind of products do you have your money in? What kind of accounts do you have your money in, right? So is it going to be one where there's going to be a lot of risk, or is it going to be a lot of growth? Or could you have the best of both worlds, right? And that's primarily what this index product is all about. It's going to help you to have the best of both worlds, where you be able to participate in the market if the market goes up, but not necessarily if the market goes down. So we like to call this sleep money, right? So where you can go to sleep and you can be rest assured that your money is not going to be lost in the market. I wanted to talk about just a scenario of 2 brothers, right? So the story begins something like this in this case study, where you have 2 brothers that they're the same age, of course, married with children. They had the same amount of money, earning the same 8% interest rate, and they are for the same period of time, of course. One brother, of course, has his own way of believing. The other brother believes a different way. And that's the new way, right? So the old way versus the new way. How many of you know people that are, when they think about things, it's just kind of stuck in the past, and that's how they know it. So that's all they're comfortable with, and that's what they want to do. Well, let's talk about that. So what if, you could have, for example, his contribution for a 401k, 65-20, right? And Brother B has no contributions. He's just kind of basically, contributing to his IUL, if you will, right? So he has a $7,200 annual premium versus a 401k that Brother A is actually paying into, all right, with the employer math, because he's excited. He knows the old way, right? He has that annual premium. You get it, right? So we're going to move on. Again, after 30 years, fast forwarding, you have Brother A with the $850. He gave money to his 401k, zero term insurance, of course. He has cumulative tax savings, and he has $858,000 in his retirement, right? Brother B, on the other hand, has less money. All right. He still believes in the new way. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. That is the whole goal of us, kind of teaching this today, right? So as we educate our church members or, people in our nonprofit organizations, we want to make sure that we help them to understand this, right? So Brother A versus Brother B still. Why did he, at the end win in over 30 years later? Because he had more money, right? So unfortunately, at age 74, which is the average age for people to run out of money in retirement, unfortunately, he ran out of money because he had to end up paying those taxes, which he didn't plan for and didn't have the money for, right, in his 70s. But Brother B, who was educated, understood, what to do with his money. And again, when we talked about having the best of both worlds, not losing any money in his account, but able to absolutely be doing what we talk about, sleep money, having that money to be able to be in a safe haven account where he could participate in the market when the market goes up, but not when the market goes down. So zero loss. And guess what happened? He also has a death benefit for his family. Why? Because he put his money inside an index universal life. That's what an IUL is, right? So if Brother B dies at age 100, and these policies go to 120, he would receive all of this money and have left his family money. When I'm going to ask you a question, I'm going to stop right here. How many of you can say that your, whatever qualified plan, which is a 401k, 403b, 457, all those different types of plans, do they have any type of death benefit? Do they have any type of living benefits? We're going to talk about all of that because it's important to understand that, right? So which plan makes you feel more financially secure, right? Not only for you, but even for the next generation, right? So if I was to ask you today, do you believe taxes are going to go up or go down? Most people will say, absolutely, with everything that's going on in the world today, that is probably going to go up, right? So we're at one of the lowest parts that we've ever seen and since history, right? So it's gone as high as 94%, 91%, and we're currently, around 39, 40%, right? So at the end of the day, it's all about keeping more money. This next chart that you're going to see is going to be primarily what's been happening with, the blue line being an index account versus a traditional qualified plan type of account, which is the red line, significantly lower at times. But again, an index product is always stronger. So the goal is to understand how money works. How does your tax work? And of course, you probably definitely need to see my buddy there, my brother, around taxes, because he knows taxes like no other. So understanding which vehicle your taxes are going to go into is really important. And so understanding exactly where to put your money in terms of your retirement account is even more important. So you can only get, two of the three. Otherwise, it's called tax evasion, right? So have you considered giving your employees options? So since we're talking to nonprofits and churches, right? So you should have some employees, and what type of options are you giving them is the thing, right? And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But again, traditional retirement accounts versus the new way of doing money, the index annuity or the we'll talk about the IULs. We already spoke about the IULs, but let's just talk about the index annuities just for a second here, right? Because those accounts go into annuities versus an IUL. If you have those types of accounts and you're trying to move into a tax, deferred account, and you want to make sure that your money is becoming tax-free. And, after you take that money out, then you definitely want to make sure that you consider doing an annuity. If you want less risk, let's just be more clear. If you want less risk, you want to make sure that you consider the annuity if you want it inside a sleep insurance type of account, right? So there's accounts that's paying anywhere from 4 to 10% for your money to you if you decide to move them to any of those types of accounts. The average is about 7% on whatever it is that you move. But there's all types of, like we talked about before, living benefits. So if you become chronically, critically, or terminally ill, that's something that's in the IUL, but not necessarily in the annuity. So in this particular instance, we only going to have the lifetime income benefit rider that can give you that lifetime income, where you would not have that if you kept your money inside of a traditional qualifying account. So just let me slow down a little bit. Want to make sure that we understand. So the qualifying account, which is those different types of accounts that's on the left here. So your 401k, 403b, all these different types of accounts. They're going to actually eventually run out, as you saw in Brother A's example, at the age around 70ish, right? Without any type of living benefits, without a death benefit, and without any income. But an annuity is going to give you an income, as you can see here, with a lifetime income benefit rider. And you're going to have all upside gain and no losses. So you're basically going to take away the risk, in terms of an index annuity. So let's keep moving, right? So the IRA. And again, you're going to have the ability to receive a bonus if you decide to move it over. And of course, the 10% access penalty free withdrawal per year, right? So you get to access that with penalty free withdrawals. And then let's talk about, your traditional again versus your index universal life policy, which is totally different from the annuity, where you will have that lifetime benefit rider, but you also have living benefits, as well as you also have a death benefit. So your cash value, your retirement lifetime income is ideally what people are looking for today. Is that new style of insurance that a lot of people still are not familiar with. Believe it or not, there's still a lot of people that aren't familiar with that. So let's just keep moving on, because I want to talk to you about how you could benefit your employees here in just a second. So your executive compensation plan options for your key executives. So one of the things with churches is that, the pastor does all he know how, to live right and to preach to the congregation, and of course, provide some excellent services. And unfortunately, some pastors, they end up, dying and don't have anything to show for it. They don't even have, any type of death benefit, some of them, to be honest. And so what if there was a way that, the congregation could literally, help this pastor out, making sure that, he's taken care of, and even that pastor taking care of his staff, right? And so just a mere $10 a day, that's something that could be put aside. Don't you feel like, the pastor could use a $10 per day raise to make sure that he's going to have exactly what he needs in terms of him and his family for the good work that he's been doing? We talk about the 10% tithe, and you've been blessed and everything of that nature, right? So how do you take care of your pastor, and how does a pastor in turn take care of the congregation in terms of his staff members that's helping him? These are what we're talking about in terms of that for the churches, and even in a nonprofit. If you have a staff of people that you want to take care of, a lot of them don't have what they need. Well, there's a plan called, let's just talk about that, a plan called Leverage. So the same way you as an individual can take part in this plan, even though this is tailored primarily for organizations, people do this as well, as long as they fit the criteria. Is everybody don't qualify? But if you fit the criteria, which means that your household combined income is at least, 6 figures, then you can participate in this type of a plan where you're going to leverage other people's money. In other words, you're going to partner with the bank to give you what you need to help you to get your retirement account to be built up, so that you can now be able to be that much further in your catch-up plan, if you will, of retirement. And that's what the average person don't really know or understand. How do I catch up on retirement? I'm starting kind of late, but there's some ways that you can do that, right? So let's look at leveraging, because we leverage, the banks for our finances when we want to buy a home, but we don't leverage it for when we want to save up for retirement. And it's the same concept. You put a mortgage on your house to live in it for all of your life, but how are you mortgaging your retirement plan? And that's primarily what this is all about. That, oh, by the way, you don't have to qualify with credit, and oh, by the way, that's what you don't have to do, right? So the goal is to look at how can you leverage, just like the rich and the wealthy have already been doing, the bank's money, because you make a certain amount of money. The only criteria is, are you healthy, right? And do you make them enough money to be able to do this, to participate? All right. So that's something that's there. But no matter what, most churches and national, nonprofit organizations, they have the ability to do just that, to take care of their pastors, or they take care of their executives to make sure that they have what they need in terms of retirement. Because the goal is to make sure that you make it more attractive to keep the best talent. This is a retention tool used for various companies to make sure that they keep the right people on their team, especially in this environment where there's a lot of fluctuations and people leaving. And even with the millennials, Generation Z's, they're not necessarily trying to stay unless you have some amazing benefits. So these are some ways to really kind of do what we call the golden handcuffs and keep them with your organization. So again, this is one way to leverage. So what if we could get a bank to provide $3 for every $1 that you put into the retirement plan, right? And that's pretty much what this is. You could achieve 60% to 200% more tax-free income during your retirement if you were to do just that. So the financial obstacles facing executives is just that, right? So the Kaizen solution is primarily what we use to do that, to help you. And it's only about 10 companies nationwide, or maybe a little bit more now, because this is kind of old, but that are actually doing this type of a plan. It's not common, but it's definitely one that could help you if you're looking to try to leverage to help with your retirement accounts for you and your executives and your organizations. So again, so there's an obstacle, an unplanned medical emergency. Someone 65 years old retiring has 70% probability of needing long-term care in retirement, costing $277,000. But the Kaizen solution that we're talking about right now provided them this ability to really help cover those expenses. We also had some clients that have had cancer, unfortunately, and didn't have the $80,000 for their formula, but this was able to help them because they tapped into the living benefits that they had, right? And so, obstacles and increasing in taxes, estimates that our income taxes will double by 2033. But this can provide you a hedge against increased taxes by utilizing policy loans that provide distributions from your plan. So you can absolutely take your money out and use it as a loan for any emergencies that you may have, things of that nature, right? So the market is going when it rather goes down, no matter where it goes, you're still going to be able to make the money that you need in your account, and you're going to be able to be able to use that money for your income, or you can use it for your death benefit, and both, right? So that's the goal. So do you have enough income? When people come to us and say that they want an income in the future, depending on what they make, this is where we start. And the reason why is because you get the most money for what it is that you're actually putting in. You're going to triple your money to be able to grow your account, to be able to have a greater amount of money in retirement. So the Kaizen solution offers you the potential for growth in a market index while providing protection from market declines. Once potential gains are credited, they can never decrease due to market losses. And that is what is key. So understanding that. So put your money to work for you to help you preserve the lifestyle that you want. That's how I started out asking you, what type of lifestyle you want to see yourself, in terms of retirement. Is it going to decline? Is it going to improve? What is it going to look like? And that's where we can come in and help you. So most of us are already taking advantage of leverage, using financing to live in a bigger house than what we are willing to pay for out of our pocket today. This is actually a much larger presentation, but for the sake of time, I had to condense it because we go into the weeds around, the actual match, and what that looks like. And so basically I'll kind of talk to you about that, and you can stop the slides. You can go ahead and stop that. But I want to talk about, how let me see if I can stop the share. Okay, very good. Yeah, I wanted to talk about, what that really looks like, because at the end of the day, people are, they want to have more money in retirement, and they want to win in retirement, but they don't necessarily always have what they need to make sure that that happens. But with the Kaizen plan, if you have, because usually the older you are, the more money you make. Now you have the ability to be able to do that, rather it's you solo, or you doing it as a pastor, or you doing it as a nonprofit organization. You'll have the ability to be able to now catch up and leverage other people's money. And that's really what it's all about. You hear that a lot in the real estate investing world, which is another world that I'm in as well. But to be able to understand that they're going to match you for the first 5 years, right? And then the next 5 years, they're going to put in your portion and their portion. And then the next 5 years, it just kind of seasons, and this kind of sits there and grows. So now it's 15 years of growth, right? And now you have an income that's coming to you for the rest of your life, tax free. And where do they do that at? And what other types of accounts do they do that at that amount of money, right? Where you're going to literally leverage the bank's money to do that. That's not, you don't see that. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I brought that to the executive bonus to these organizations, nonprofits, and churches, because you have to have these type of plans to make it more attractive so that you can retain the proper talent in your organization, but also to take care of your pastors, because we love our pastors. We want to make sure they have the best plans available if they decide they would want to retire, right? But they can retire and still preach, right? So that's pretty much what we have for now.
Yeah, I mean, see, this is a really good time to share this, and many people don't know the benefits of life insurance policies, Shateka. So, this is a really good time to educate people, and I believe the listeners, the people that's watching us, are going to grab this information and want to contact you. How can people contact you?
Sure. They can reach out at 678-736-6496. Or they can go to shateka.com, book a consultation. That's literally my first name.com. And they can book a consultation that way as well. And pretty much that's going to be the two best ways to reach me the fastest.
Awesome. Yeah, so thank you so much, Shateka, for offering that information. I took plenty of notes, but of course, I know the industry as well. But some of the
Yes.
things that you pointed out is still like refreshing to hear, and it's like, wow, I didn't think about that. And so when you're thinking of nonprofit leaders or even pastors, this is really a great tool for them to build their retirement and tax free, because like you said, I'm on the tax side, so a lot of times I see people paying a lot of money in taxes in their retirement.
That's
However,
right.
this gives them that stream where they don't have to pay as much taxes, and look at their their money in terms of their future growth and how they want to structure things to
That's right.
limit or lower their tax liability. So
But
this
you
is
know the
really good.
IRS. The IRS is coming after us for these taxes.
It is.
Cryptocurrency, real estate investing. And in fact, we use these types of accounts to fund real estate investor portfolios, to be
Wow.
honest. Because
Yeah.
here's what the wealthy do. They take the build up from the cash value in these types of accounts, and they fund the annuity, right? And they take the life insurance, the IUL, the money that's increased, okay, because of the cash value buildup. That increase is tax-free money. Now they take that money and they go and invest it somewhere else, rather that's in an annuity, right, or in some type of income plan in an
Yeah.
annuity, or funding their real estate investment for portfolio. They do what they can to make sure that their money is growing at no risk. And that's why your people are not paying taxes, because they are designing these executive plans to do just that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shateka. Once
Yes.
again, stick around towards the end. So
Yes.
if we have any questions, we can definitely bring you on for that.
I'm here. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. So, we're transitioning, Joy. This has been such a lesson learned. Like, I mean, so many lessons that we're getting out of this so far. I just, once again, appreciate the knowledge that we're getting from these speakers. And we're ready to move on to the next speaker in a moment. And before we do, I'm going to tell you all this speaker that's coming up. And, I share my personal, like, this is me talking about each speaker. I met her by way of someone that we know together. So it was a mutual contact, and she put us in touch with each other. And from then on, I was like, oh, we got to do a workshop. We got to do a financial workshop because what she brings to the table. So before I go into that, Joey, can you please introduce to us Tamara Sword. That'll be, that's our next speaker. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. I am definitely enjoying myself. And I'm so excited about our next speaker, Miss Tamara Sword. I mean, she shows small to mid-sized businesses and nonprofits how to increase the efficiency and tackle even the most complex financial issues. And that's simply her passion. As for her receipts, I tell you, she is a certified public accountant, and this keeps her up to date with current regulations and best practices to help your business. For her education, she includes that she has a BBA from the University of Houston and an MBA from Texas Women's University, which provided information to help dedicate herself with helping your business and develop and expand. With over 20 years of experiencing in various industries, including pharmaceutical, manufacturing, oil and gas, as well as nonprofits, she has a plethora of data to observe and apply best practices across different fields of practice. And she is a QuickBooks certified pro advisor for online and desktop, which she uses these systems and other programs to provide your business with resources to run more efficiently and effectively. And with all of that she's able to do, Miss Tamara Sword, she is totally consumed with helping businesses succeed. She really enjoys traveling. I'm so excited to bring up Miss Tamara Sword.
I am so glad to be here. Thank you. And thank you, Donald. I am just honored to know you and your practice and to be on. We're actually doing the webinar we talked about a few months ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is amazing, isn't it?
It is. It's exciting.
Yeah, we had a great conversation. And for the listeners out there, when me and Tamara, we were talking and we were exchanging information, just talking about the knowledge and the wisdom that, we both share. And I was like, Tamara, we can't hold this. We're going to have to share this on a platform or something, some kind of workshop or something. And so we just connected. So Tamara, I really, really appreciate you. You have the great spirit that, just when I met you, and I'm looking to hear what you have to say to the audience here. So I'm just going to sit back and let you do your thing. And I think you have slides to share.
I do. And my angle is going to be really, I'm looking to make this happen here. My angle is going to be a little more on for the organizational side. And so we're going to be talking about that. And please tell me if you can see these. Can you see that on there?
Yes, very good. I can see it.
Perfect. So we're going to just demystify the organization's finances. So many people tell me they're scary and they don't have to be. So church financial, organizational financial administration, that's where I kind of want to lean in today. So it's an often overlooked function in the church and nonprofit world. That was actually mentioned by one of the speakers earlier. And this is something you want to definitely lean into. And understanding that the administrative setup is essential because it provides accountability. It delivers useful information in seasons of growth and challenge, and it enhances the overall platform of the organization. So these type of things are why it's important, because people are like, oh, it's just the back office. Do I really have to deal with this? This is why it's important, is because of these type of things. It provides this accountability, useful information, and enhances the organization overall. But there are key factors, and we're going to touch on a few different areas that we're going to hit very high level just because we don't have the time to go in depth, but we're going to try to provide some key elements. And if you need more information, we can always go further. But as we were talking about retirement funds and life insurances, one of the key things you need from that is you need payroll. And many times payroll is not set up. And so payroll is important in any organization, especially in the church and nonprofit. One of the things that comes up is, well, are they an employee or are they a contractor? There's various factors that are there. That's a big question I get asked. This is a key regulatory issue. And so you've got to look at regulatory rules about this. There's behavioral rules. Does the employee control them? Right to control what they do. There's financial rules, business aspects of the job. Are the expenses reimbursed? Who provides the tools? And then there's the type of the relationship. Are there written contracts, employee type benefits? There's different factors that determine whether that's an employee or a contractor. And so you have to really kind of focus in on that when you're making those determinations. But when you determine someone is and you can also go to the irs.gov website, and there's a whole list of criteria that help. It's not black and white, but it helps you identify that so that you can do payroll or reimburse people from a contractor perspective correctly. When you have payroll from a ministerial perspective, you have an opportunity for housing allowance for ministers. People say, do I qualify for that? Well, you can if you're licensed, ordained, or commissioned. Conducting a religious worship. Also administrating ordinances such as baptisms, weddings, communion. And having management responsibilities within the church. One other activity is the church considering that employee to be a religious leader. Some of these are factors in being able to utilize the housing allowance for payroll. This is just a whole nother aspect of payroll, especially in the church and in the church role. And so payroll is a very important, and it goes back to being able to manage your own finances, which we heard from our first speaker, being able to deal with your life insurance. You need that income coming in. So all of this really ties together in the understanding, but then also how are you paying your people and the employees, the staff, those that are working with you. Now, there are questions sometimes of the housing allowance has been challenged in the past. And it has been. So some people say, is it going to last? Are we going to keep the housing allowance? Well, it has been challenged, but that has been overturned. That's on another slide. It has been overturned, and we don't expect that to be challenged again in a few years. One of the other things that I wanted to mention was there is a limit of what the housing can be based on. The housing allowance is limited based on what's designated by the church, because it has to be designated based on the actual housing expenses, including mortgage payments, utilities, property tax, insurance, furnishings, repairs, improvements. That covers a lot. Also, the fair rental value of the home or the fair rental value of the home furnished, including utilities. Here's a key part of that. That can be up to 100% of the funds received if it fits into that limit and that allowance of what's been paid out. So just keeping those things in mind, this is a great part of payroll, but you can't use housing allowance if payroll is not being utilized. I've had people tell me, oh, I've got a housing allowance. They're giving me a housing allowance, but no payroll is being done. Well, you can't take a housing allowance if payroll has not been assigned and set up. So that's something just to really be considered here. I mentioned about the legal challenge. Back in 2019, the U.S. Court of Appeals did reverse a lower court's ruling that found that provision unconstitutional. We do not expect that to be challenged again for several years. Could be again in the future, but that housing allowance is still expected to stay in place. One of the things that I find a lot of times when working with churches, besides payroll, is we'll find that people don't have a lot of systems that they're using. You know, what systems do you use? You can put that in the chat. Let us know. There's a lot of opportunities for systems out there. Systems for managing our congregational databases, managing our giving, managing how we deal with our finances, all of those types of systems. I want to just highlight a few that I recommend right here. So giving and management and member management systems, two that are really good are Planning Center and Tithely. Both of them are very good systems for giving and member management. They give a lot of good information. You can go to those websites and check things out in that. Another good system for your financial data is QuickBooks Online. You can get that through the donation side of TechSoup. And make sure that your organization is registered with TechSoup.org so that you can get all the donations for a 501c3 if you have that set up. A receipt management system. A receipt management system allows you to capture those receipts and have them go into your financial system. And Corpay One is a great system that I have just found this year. And it also helps to pay your bills, all of these things. And it is actually a free system. And so really, really great system to work with there. But people say, well, I don't have the time, energy, money, and I don't want to learn this stuff. Or I don't have I'm not at the point to build that. You know, you can always still use Microsoft Office. You have Excel and Word documents that you can still use. Now, there are tools out there, and the dollars are very low to be able to utilize a lot of these tools, especially when it's at the donation prices that you can get. And like I said, Corpay One is free. So there's a lot of different options that you can use. So let's say you've got a system. You've got the numbers in there. Now what? What do those numbers tell me? It's numbers. Well, those numbers tell a story. Those numbers tell a story about that organization, about your organization, about your church, about your nonprofit. Now, there's 4 key reports that I want to hit on, just so you know, because sometimes people hear these words and they're like, they mean nothing to me. Reports, again, remember, are just a story. Those numbers aren't positive or negative. No pun intended there. They're just a story. So one of the reports is your statement of financial position. That's the official term for it in the nonprofit world. In the for-profit world, that's the balance sheet. So if you see balance sheet or hear balance sheet in the nonprofit world, that's the statement of financial position that tells about the health of your entire organization. And so you can then see, here's my assets, here's my liabilities, and here's my net revenues. So that gives you your full picture of the organization. The next one that you want to make sure that you're looking at is your statement of activities. That's, again, the official term in the nonprofit world. For profit, we'll hear it called an income statement or a profit and loss. But we're nonprofit, so we can't call it profit and loss. So it's a statement of activities. It's the activities that have happened in a certain specific time frame. And so that tells what revenues have come in and what expenses have gone out. So that gives you all that information there. Another key report here is a fund accounting report. It tells about how the money has been spent in various departments in the various funds of the nonprofit. So that's some technical reporting there. And then also your contribution reports. Contribution reports are a legal requirement, and it's important for your members because if they are trying to get tax write-offs, that is an opportunity for them at that point. So these are some of the key reports that we want to do. But to circle back, okay, there's our technical. But why do we need to do this? Why do we need to do this? Well, we want to be a good steward of his resources. If we are going to be following what Lord has given us, we want to be a good steward of those. We also want to be a blessing to those in the community and to the organization that we've been called to serve. Whether that's a church or a nonprofit, we want to do that well as a good steward and as a blessing. And we want to show accountability to those investing in the kingdom work. That was also mentioned earlier in this conference. So these are very important parts that we want to make sure that we've covered and that we tackle, and why we are doing. We set up the systems that we need. We review the reports that we need to do. We set up the payroll. We look at all of these things because we want to invest and we want to do the right thing. But we don't only do that. We need to teach that stewardship. That goes back to leaving or not only leaving, but leading a legacy. So we were teaching, leading a legacy and teaching stewardship. We want to be good stewards of his resources. We want to show people what we are doing so they can follow that. Focusing on that generosity before just giving. Focus on the whole concept of that. And the last point in this is that stewardship, remembering it's for the individual's benefit, not just for the organization. So we're wanting to, again, making sure that we're teaching stewardship and not just asking for people's money, teaching generosity and being that good steward, being that example of that for others so that they can know and go through all of those pieces with that. So what now? There's all kinds of pieces. There's all kinds of opportunity. There's all kinds of different things that we can do. And I know there's different ways that we can all work together. But it's ways that we can support each other as we work with things. And we can share with each other, and so you can reach out to me. You see my website there. I have a scheduling. You can schedule an appointment with me, but I help churches and organizations set up these times, set up these appointments to get their systems set up. Because many times systems, they may not be set up correctly. They may not be efficient. And we want efficiency, because efficiency allows for us to do more opportunities in the kingdom. Because our goal is not just for these numbers. Our goal is to reach people. And then as we have these things in place, we can actually reach more people. We can actually change more lives. We can actually do more things, whatever that mission of the nonprofit is. We can do more for that if we have our systems and our processes in place so that we can expand what we're doing.
Wow, Tamara, of course, you share some great information. And you know, this is kind of like a branch off of what we were talking about amongst ourselves. And so whenever can you give us an example situation where you actually helped a ministry get things set up, like they scheduled an appointment with you? What does that normally look like for you as you working with them?
Absolutely. Just had one this year who did not have really anything set up, and we've gone back and we've put 3 years worth of data, because they actually did a church plant about 3 years ago. And so that was part of our goal, is to get that data into a system, because then they wanted to buy a building, but to get a loan with the bank wants to know what your financials are. Or with any loan organization, whether it's a bank or another organization, they want to know your financials. And so you've got to have that data in place. And so those are types of pieces. And so the process really winds up being, we want to have the system in place. And if you already have a system, generally we can work with that, or we get people signed up on TechSoup. We make sure that they get that donation pricing for QuickBooks, get that data uploaded. I mean, the best place to start is when a nonprofit doesn't have a whole lot of stuff and they're just getting started, and we get them started off right. If they haven't got payroll started, I usually have a payroll system. Gusto is who I really like to lean into with a payroll system. All of these systems integrate with QuickBooks. And I love that when you integrate stuff, again, it's efficiency, and it helps streamline things. Many times I can put the systems in place and train the people that are already doing it so that they can manage it. But other times they need to hire somebody like Butler Consulting or somebody to do their bookkeeping. I'm not their bookkeeper. That's not my role. I can set them up. I want to help make sure we have those IT securities in place. I want to make sure we have all those things in place, but then help them understand those numbers. Because sometimes people are like, I see there's numbers and you say it's a statement of activity, but what does this mean? Exactly. So let's know what those numbers mean. Let's bring meaning out of them, because let's understand what's happened in the organization. So then we can know how to grow and where we can take and how the Lord can help us grow that organization.
Absolutely. We got some questions from the chat, so I wanted to post these. One says, contribution. How do you report in-kind donations in the contribution report?
Generally, that's not in a contribution report. You can put that in a separate kind of letter. Generally, in kind, though, you don't put an amount on. That's up to the person who's actually donating it. You can say they donated, 5 boxes of crayons, but you're not going to put the amount because they might have gotten them at 5 cents a box, or they may have paid $5 a box. But it's up to them to document what they paid to the IRS.
And if that doesn't answer the question, please feel free to ask another question. I see another question that someone posed. Are there any templates for these reports? The reports that you mentioned.
There are templates out there. Those are standard reports. There's a lot of different setups. It depends on how the chart of accounts has been set up. Depends on what verbiage and terminology. Each organization kind of uses different words, different terminologies. But there are a lot of different templates or setups, but like QuickBooks Online, different things like that come with that. You can change some of that wording, some of that terminology inside of those, but those reports are standard reports out there that there are templates available if you need that.
There's another question. What risk does a church or ministry, I would even say nonprofit, run if these systems are not in place?
A lot.
That's coming from the auditor. So Melson asked that question. Thank you, Melson.
Well, there's a lot of risk in various angles. You've got some risk of community support. I mean, that's one side. That's not even directly from a federal or legal standpoint. But there are very few things that are federal requirements for a church. And I'm just going to go a church route. There's a difference from a nonprofit and a church. But from a church route, they don't issue 990s. Really, the main thing there is they need to be legally set up, but then also they're running payroll. Payroll needs to be done correctly. Those are two that are really the federal requirements. The reporting needs to be there. I mean, it needs to be open to the public, but that's not under federal requirement. So there's not a lot of federal jurisdiction from a financial reporting standpoint. Other rules and regulations there, if you will. But there comes some other risk of not having this set up, because you may not catch things that I know I had a church that I'm working with that just in August got caught in what's called a phishing scheme. Phishing is the PH, not they went out fishing, but it was caught in a computer email attack. And it looked like somebody wanted to change the bank account on a payroll. So they went and after some emails back and forth, sure, we'll make that change. Thankfully, the bank had already closed that account, and so no money was lost. But these are the types of things that if IT securities aren't in place, actual money can be lost as well. If you don't have what I'll call internal securities set up, if you don't have processes in place where 2 people, not family members, are checking or counting the funds, some things like that, you put yourself at risk not only of people having the opportunity to filter funds, but also people having the opportunity to be accused of stealing funds. And you don't even want that opportunity of accusation. So it's important to put securities in place, not only to protect the organization, to protect the volunteers and employees as well.
Very true. Another question, do you mind repeating the giving and member management systems you prefer?
Absolutely. The member management and giving systems I prefer are Planning Center at planningcenteronline.com and also Tithely. Tidely has really grown in the last couple of years. It actually also integrates directly with QuickBooks. It is get.tithe.ly. So it's Tidely, get.tithe.ly, or Planning Center at planningcenteronline.com.
Now, I have a quick question about that. Do they have like a giving? Because sometimes people want to migrate to like a text to give.
Mhm.
Does that system that you just recommended, does that allow text to give?
Both of them do.
Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Tamara, for anyone that wants to get in touch with you, how would they be able to touch base with you?
The best way is go to my website. There's a place to schedule an appointment with me. My email's there, my phone number's there. All of that is right there. And it's my full name right there on the screen, www.tamarasword.com. Reach out to me, schedule a free consultation. Be glad to talk with you about what your situation is, what your setup is, because every organization has differences, has their own nuances, but there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of ways that we can actually help you get set up. Also have a training program for QuickBooks Online on the website. So if somebody's already on it and they're like, I just don't understand it, it's a training program for QuickBooks Online specifically for churches.
Nice. Thank you so much, Tamara. Stick around. We're going to have some questions
Absolutely.
for you at the end. And I'm transitioning really quick. You guys, thank you so much for being a part of this amazing event. And of course, we're hosting it online for people you're joining via YouTube, Facebook. We're online streaming live. And so we're thankful for all of you who are here attending this event. Now, I'm Professor Donald Butler. I use professor because I am a professor for University of Maryland Global Campus teaching accounting. So I teach accounting, and one thing that's important for many of us is to understand that accounting is just what it is, being accountable, that we need to be accountable to our accountant, that we need to be accountable related to our finances, to someone like some of the speakers here, to make sure that we are doing the right things that we can with our money. Now, as a nonprofit organization, as a church, the information that you got today has been helpful so far. And I'll tell you, we have some fantastic speakers. But now I'm going to introduce myself as the owner of Butler Squared Consulting. So what we do, very similar to what Tamara was speaking of. So she does the consulting side, and we come in to actually be the accountant to help you to manage these systems, because sometimes it can be overwhelming trying to understand accounting. And a lot of times, unless you have the skill set, the background to understand accounting, it is even better to hire someone that understands how to use QuickBooks, that's QuickBooks certified. And so that's what we're here to do. So we provide that service to our clients. And what we do is we do a consultation, understand your needs, and helping you get things set up in QuickBooks. Because one of the major things that, as it relates to being a nonprofit, we have some nonprofits that we work with. But accountability is so important. Whenever you're getting grant money, whenever you're getting funding, contributions, that you're keeping track with that money. Why? Because sometimes the grants may say that they want to see your financials. You may have to report some of your financials to some of these entities before they award you a grant. Or perhaps they may say that they want your financials to be audited. So one of the great things about having an accountant is using your accountant in a way that they're prepared for an audit, or they're preparing your books to be audited to supply to a grantor, for example. And that helps you to become successful in your nonprofit organization. Now, I've seen nonprofits do very well. I've seen some that do not do very well in their first year. So what helps you to be successful in your nonprofit? Having the right board, having the right financial committee. I sit on the board for one of the nonprofits that I support, that I work with, and I'm a part of a specific committee. So we have meetings, we have quarterly meetings. So you got to make sure you have quarterly meetings to discuss those financials. So for our clients, we provide the financial reports, as Tamara was mentioning, that we share with our clients. So when they have their board meeting, they're ready to share that information, look at their budget to actuals. What did they budget and what did they actually spend? And therefore, when they get together to have their board meeting, they can actually discuss it. And then some of the things that you want to be prepared for, if your organization is doing very well financially, then we need to complete a full 990 report. And if you have a nonprofit organization, you'll know what that means, a 990 report. But for the sake of time, this is something that nonprofits normally have to file, but churches are exempt from filing 990 reports. But however, it doesn't mean that a church doesn't need to or shouldn't keep track with their financials. It really helps you to be accountable. And we're here to help you. We're here to support you and making sure that you are successful in that mission. So with that in mind, I think there's a question. So I want to make sure I address any questions or anything that comes up. But feel free to drop in a question. Now, I have a surprise guest. So I'm going to bring Joy back with me. Joy is amazing. She is in the great state of Texas. Joy, how are you?
Wow.
So we have a
Professor
surprise
Don.
guest. Yes, we have
Yes.
a surprise guest. And I'm telling you, she is a major influence in the Baltimore, Maryland region. And we're so thankful to be connected with her. But her name is Mary Alexander. And just give you a personal story about Mary, how we relate to her. She said, Donald, I need some help. So we are so thankful that she decided to use Butler Squared as her as her accountant to help her to get her nonprofit set up properly. So we helped her to get her 501c3. So this is something that we provide as a service to our clients. And Melson Tooks is on line here with us. And thank you, Melson, for tuning in. But Melson is very intricate part of our business, using his company, Goshen Consulting, to help us to get 501c3s for our clients. That exempt certificate. But Joy, before I continue on, please introduce Mary Alexander to us. Give us her background, and I'm excited to bring her on.
Yes, I'm very excited, and a wealth of information as well that you just provided. I hope people are taking notes because this is so important to be accountable. But I am so excited to bring up our next guest, Miss Mary S. Alexander. Thanks to her grandmother, she has always had a seat at the table. In the Douglas Home Projects, where she was raised, neighbors gathered around her grandmother's kitchen table, and Mary was allowed to listen to the grown-up talk about the Jim Crow South, the March on Washington, and the lifetime of racism the older folks had endured. Her namesake grandmother, Mary's strongest role model, instilled an early love of learning and a reverence for education, understanding that schooling led to opportunities. Mary later pursued a college degree. Her healthcare career gave her the financial stability that many of her neighbors lacked. And when their children began relying on the charity of drug dealers for food, Mary had to intervene. She founded the Elderly Lunch and Literacy Program, a children's free lunch program, and started attending grant writing classes and nonprofit meetings. At one particular grant makers meeting, a local member admonished Mary, saying she didn't belong there. But Mary did belong at the table and attended even more meetings with steely determination. She knew Black and brown people deserved those same seats. So she joined online groups and went to trainings, establishing several nonprofit projects to help community residents and youth break the cycle of generational poverty through educational support, skill building, mentoring, and employment opportunities. She has volunteered on several educational committees and boards and established projects like the Youth Jobs Initiative and the Unique Fabrics nonprofit, which helps underdeserved women in East Baltimore gain marketable sewing skills. Through mentoring and education, Mary is empowering her community and building inroads to financial freedom. We are glad to welcome Miss Mary S. Alexander.
Yay, welcome, Mary. I'm glad that you could be with us. And your mic is on mute, Mary. Let's see if we can unmute your mic.
Is it unmuted?
There it is. We got you. Finally, you're part of my event. You're part of my event. I always show up for yours, so I'm so super
I know. But I was
saying,
Joy, you did a good job, sis, and I just gave you that bio like 15 minutes ago. I was looking around saying, go, Joy, you do your thing, girl. That is not easy, boy. That's not easy when you out there and you trying to, read off of somebody else's material. You did a great job, girl.
Yes, yes. Mary, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I'm going to share your slides with you. So I'm excited
Sure,
about the
sure.
content that you're going to share.
I'm calling you. I'm only about 3 blocks from Morgan State University, the Morgan State University, here in
Yay.
Baltimore, Maryland. Yes, I'm a native and lifelong resident of East Baltimore. And there's a difference. There's a East Baltimore and there's a West Baltimore, but we all want Baltimore. And having grown up in this area and everything, it's always been a challenge to try to use what we don't have and the little bit of resources we have. So I just, when Donald asked me about coming on today, I was just like, I can only talk about my journey. And I have taken notes as well, you all. So some of the speakers before, I got notes right here trying to get my my attitude together about my money mindset as well. So I want to thank all those presenters before me. Mary Alexander, I'm named after Mama. I don't know how many of you all out there know how that's not just important, but that's a privilege, being the first and the oldest grandchild and the first child and born to a teenage mother in East Baltimore. It wasn't really my vision to own anything. It wasn't my vision to be a leader, but yet I was leading. And so I'm just grateful for the resources, not in resources and money, but resources and people who are in my space right now to help move the needle forward for other people. That's the whole point of it. It's mission possible. So Donald, if you are able to, and just a little caveat, I sent Donald my slideshow in advance because sometimes the Wi-Fi in this area, because I am near Morgan, it's a lot of students on. So I wanted to make sure that I had my setup such that we could actually share. So Mission Possible is and I just want to let you all know that coming on board right here, my background is in healthcare. I never went beyond an AA degree at the Community College of Baltimore. That's not to say anything more than the fact that I always worked in a hospital for the most part. I'm a physical therapist assistant. So when I was giving block parties and doing things in the community, back to school cookouts and things like that, we always just did it from our own resources in our own pockets. But that one particular time in 2016 in my community, when I was informed that the children were going to have a hard time in the summertime because they relied that much on school lunches, didn't even realize that we were coined in this particular phrase of living in a food desert. Didn't understand that. You can have corner stores and still live in a food desert. That means your children are not eating healthy. That means you may not have money to purchase. And so when that information came to me, it hit me like a ton of bricks because I didn't even pay attention to that up until that point. So we started the McElderry Park Lunch and Literacy. We gave it a name, and I went to tell the leadership. And at that point in time, we got our first community grant from the Annie Casey Foundation here in Baltimore, not really knowing. They gave us $2,500. We did have to write a little something about it, but we got started. And then from there, we kept thinking in terms of, well, if we did it one time, why can't we do it again? Why can't we think bigger? Why can't we? So we all came up with this idea, a few women sitting there, and we said, what can we do together? And we came up with a lot of ideas, but the one idea that stuck was a sewing. So we wanted to talk in terms of how we can teach each other to sew so that we can get jobs and make prom dresses and alter and do things on our own in our own households. And in 2017, about 9 of us got together and started Unique Fabric Sewing program for women and girls. Now that's where we started at. We were given some in-kind space at the Amazing Grace Lutheran Church. We got together. I used my tax money to buy the machines, and we got donations for fabric and thread, and we started sewing, and we started coming up with ideas. And what was coming and what was growing out of that was the fact that we were encouraging one another, and we were actually using this platform together so that we can move the needle and try to decide, for ourselves, how can we make our lives better? How can we make our community better? But, all of this was coming so fast that we weren't a nonprofit. We weren't in a position to ask for more money outside of the small amounts that the Annie Casey Small Community Grant was affording us. And so at that point in time, someone suggested becoming fiscally sponsored. And I went out and I started doing a little bit of research and started asking questions. And in 2017, Unique Fabrics became fiscally sponsored by the Fusion Partnership. If you can advance the slide for me, Donald. So I didn't know, but just going on some of the mentions of, what it was all about, I did not know what fiscal sponsorship was. I didn't understand even what nonprofit was, but I've come to understand, and someone enlightened me, that nonprofit is your filing status that you have with the federal government. It is not your business model. So you have to decide. Most times you cannot own a nonprofit. So what you have to do is, to start one, you have to file in your state where you're located, and you have to file. Unique Fabrics is an LLC, and I filed that in the state of Maryland. And once you get to that point where the state recognizes who you are, then I would just say you need to go ahead on and just call Donald and Mel to help you with that, furthering that process, because that paperwork was no joke. That 501c3 paperwork was like a mountain. It was like, I can't climb this by myself. So I went on and did the thing and started it, but I needed some help in a partnership with Butler Services to complete it. And it took me a few months because of me, the time that it took for me to gather my information and make sure that I was conveying what was going on in our nonprofit to Donald and to Mel. It took a while, and I'm grateful that it wasn't a rush job. I'm grateful that they actually showed me the differences between the short form and the long form, and they can do that for you as well. But it was very necessary for me to start that process, because having a fiscal sponsor, I knew that maybe I wanted to take it to the next level and be my own 501c3. But in the meantime, having that relationship, it meant something in that, what can I do to start showing that I can manage these funds and that I am actually doing the work in the community. And if you all are not at that point where you're ready to become your own 501c3, fiscal sponsorship may be the right choice for you. Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Mary. So thank you so much for the content that you shared today. Many nonprofits are looking, or I would say people that's looking to start a nonprofit. You refer business to us, and we so appreciate you. And but what is the one message that you would tell someone that's looking to start a nonprofit, looking to get funded, like with grants? Because you hear the stories, you do grant writing classes. Tell us a little bit about what you would tell that person that's interested to start a nonprofit.
Well, again, being a nonprofit, as far as in the community, there needs to be something, a problem, if you will, that you're trying to solve. No one's going to give you funding if you say, okay, here's a parched piece of land, and this land right here is just dirt, and I just want to plant some flowers. When I say no one, I shouldn't say it like that, but how you frame what you're trying to do is very important. So what is the problem with this land and this piece of real estate in your community just laying barren? It may be some significant story behind it. So you have to figure out what the problem is that you're trying to solve, because that's when you're going to attract someone's interest. And then they say, well, yeah, that is a problem. And if you do that problem, if you do address that problem, it would make this neighborhood better off. It will make our city better off. It will make the people, the residents' lives better off. A lot of people want to start a nonprofit and they see dollar signs. No, you can't see dollar signs, because a lot of this you're doing without being funded in the beginning. Trust and believe what I say to you. And if you're really not coming from that place where you're really trying to help people, you may get discouraged, and you may get burnt out, and you may just stop in your tracks. But when you have that drive to say, I know it can be done, and I know I can do it, I just got to, make sure that I buckle down and show other people. You have to be able to tell that story within 20 or
Absolutely.
so seconds. You got to tell that story, and the right story and the right way to tell it.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. And I like the fact you said, you got to know what problem exists that your nonprofit will be the answer to. And a lot of times that even with business as well, because if you're trying to set up a coffee shop, but there's so many coffee shops around you, I don't think that there's a problem in that area. But if you say, well, you know what, I'm trying to create a more diet friendly coffee, maybe that is something that could, generate the revenue that you so expect. So that goes with the for profit business as well, identifying the problem and knowing that the organization could be the solution to that problem. Now, have you ever ran into a situation, Mary, where someone was looking for funding and they found it very challenging to find funding for what they're trying to do, and exploring options for grants, where to find grants, how to identify a grant? Can you speak to that for a moment to tell that person that may be saying, how can I find a grant, whether it's for a church or whether it's for their nonprofit? What are some sources that you would recommend that they go to?
Okay, if you go down the slides, I have a list of resources that I've used over these last 4 or 5 years, starting in 2016 up to 2020. Unique Fabrics has gotten over 400 something $1,000 worth of funding from different various grants, and that was all under a fiscal sponsorship. And what happened is that I went to classes at Enoch Pratt Library. And from there, I will learn more about the foundation over in DC. And then from there, I went online and I Google searched, and I've taken classes, and I'm actually a lifetime member on a couple of platforms where I get constant information about how I can make my my program better, how I can make my writing better, how I can put my mission and vision statements together a little better. And so each time as you build forward, you are able to connect the dots, if you will. You build your network of support within, the different various platforms. So I started off with Enoch Pratt Free Library, and they have a whole grant writing section, a grant section, I should say, and they do have free classes. Right now, of course, the last 2 years they were virtual, but when I started going, they were in person, and they would have professionals come and teach you how to build a budget, how to craft a mission statement, how to get your pitch deck together. And the other piece to that was the Community Law Center, which is located in the Keswick area of Baltimore City. They tell you from a lawyer's point of view. They have nonprofit one-on-one classes, and they teach you the law behind how you get started and some of the obligations, so that you won't get caught up in some, things that you are not supposed to get caught up in, say it like that, right? And they teach you the do's and don'ts, and they make you think. They start your wheels, thinking, okay, I have to do it this way legally. I have to file this way. I have to accept funds before you even get started. You need to take some classes, and at least that course in itself. And in the state of Maryland, we have the Maryland nonprofit. Maryland's nonprofit actually teach nonprofits on how to get established. And then they also have follow-ups programs that you can take, classes and workshops you can take.
Now, if anybody want to get in touch with you, how would they reach Mary Alexander?
Oh, okay. You can reach me at murray@uniquefabrics.org. That's my email. You can also just call me 443-600-9231. Just call me on the hotline, and you can, I'll answer questions.
Awesome. I'm going to start bringing others back to the live stream. And so we are going to have a group discussion with the panel. Thank you all so much. What a wonderful event so far. Thank you all so much for all the information that you shared. This has been a great opportunity. If anyone has any questions for this group, please feel free to post your question while they're here. But I appreciate each one of you. It's been amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you all. And thank you all for the positive feedback on my the energy. I mean, this information has definitely caused, I hope for our viewers cause an activation. Sometimes we sit on things for so long, but we have no idea what we need to do to go forward. And you all have given us some ideas of what we need to do to go forward. And not only that, you've offered up your ability for us to get in contact with you all to take those next steps. So yes, I'm excited about what you all have shared with our viewers here on today.
Yeah, it's a few takeaways like what Clifton Shanequa said about budgeting and getting your finances in order. So do you have any
Yeah,
final
that was
thoughts,
great.
Clifton Shanequa?
I'm still soaking in everybody else's presentation, so we wrote it down. But ultimately, just stay in the process. No matter where you are in the financial space, just keep pressing, stay in the process. Realize that it is a path, it is a journey. So that's the core.
Definitely. I was sitting here thinking, like, we just listening to everyone. I'm like, we basically all need healthy financial functioning. I mean, that's just the way to put it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Shateka, I mean, listen, retire before you expire. Is the message. Shateka, any final thoughts? Anything you like to share?
Yeah, I just want to see more people move out of career to calling, and so ideally it's the finances that's keeping them from doing just that. So I want to give a couple book recommendations. One, The Power of Zero, so you don't pay all these taxes, right? The Power of Zero by David McKnight. That'll definitely help you. And then my mentor, the one and only Shirley Liu, she wrote the IUL ASAP. Right. So basically, the reason why you need to have an IUL actually ranked higher than people that in Amazon. So I was excited about that. So that's going to help you to definitely be able to do what it is that you need to do to move into that retirement space using the right tools to keep your money flowing. So that's all I have.
Absolutely. And Tamara, I mean, the information you share for nonprofits and churches to get set up, I mean, all of the information was just so key that you shared in that space. Any final thoughts that you want to highlight before we wrap up here?
I just think if people have questions, it's no question is a bad question. Ask the questions at whether it's on the personal side, you've got people here that can answer those. If it's on the organizational side, you have people here that can answer those. Don't let the fear and the scariness of it or the unknowing hold you back, because there's so many opportunities for us out there, and the Lord wants to do so much through us. And so let's break down those barriers and move through so that we can continue to learn together, and we can continue to grow and do the things that He's called us to.
Absolutely. I'm just going to shout out a few people that I saw online. Irina Sword, Kim Rebresh, there's Glenda Coleman on. Thank you all so much for joining us. I know people like to like to get the shout out. So I just definitely want to recognize them because they posted something in the chat. Mary Alexander, I mean, thank you so much for all that you do in the community. Y'all, let me tell y'all, Mary, she does something with the young people. Like, she works with young youth. I mean, she didn't really highlight specifically, but she invited me to speak to a group of young people from the ages of, 13 to 18, 19 years old. And I remember something, Mary, that one of the young people said. They said, you need to have savings just in case you need a lawyer if you get locked up. I thought, who is this young man? I mean, that was so key. People don't think about that. If you're gonna roll the dice, you better make sure you got something to bail you out just in case.
Absolutely.
So, it's
out of the mouths of babes, that's who we work with in Baltimore City. Let's keep it real. They will call you out and they will say something to make you think. Trust and believe. You absolutely. I want to thank you and Mel for coming on. And let me give a big shout out to Mel. I was on an entrepreneur class being taught by two young ladies, and they were getting stuck on the different definitions of LLC and proprietor. And in that moment, on a Monday, without notice, I called Mel on my cell phone, muted myself like I did earlier. I muted myself, called Mel, sent him the link, and he came on, popped into that Zoom room, and he taught those young ladies and all my babies, all 52. So he taught 54 kids at one time. The difference between S Corp, LLC, proprietor, he just made it better because they were trying. But as we learned, you can't learn everything from Google. A Google search, sometimes it takes an expert. But for me to be able to have that kind of relationship with you and your company and, and Mel was priceless. It made me look like I knew what I was doing, which I did. That I couldn't help them. They was like, well, what's the difference between a sole proprietor and an LLC? I said, wait a minute, hold on. We getting off message here. So I want to thank him. I never gave him a proper thank you, but it was 50 something kids in East Baltimore, West Baltimore. They was all over via Zoom that were better off having him speak knowledge to their question. Thank you, Mel.
Wow. You see, I mean, the listeners I'm sure that they're being inspired just from this room. I mean, you can just see the hearts of each one of you and how you want, how you contribute to the community in some type of way. And this is why nonprofits and churches should reach out to you all. And so I know each one of you share how people can get in touch with you. So anyone that want to go back and review this video, please feel free to reach out to these people, find their contact information, go to their website and set a meeting, because the biggest thing is nothing changes unless you do the change, unless you initiate the conversation, and let's get it going. Let's make sure we end 2021 with a great success. Joy, thank you so much. Yes, you got a lot of accolades during this event. And so I think people want to get in touch with Joy. Joy, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can follow me. I'm on Instagram, The Joy White. You can also reach out to me through Butler Squared. Feel free to reach me at joy.white@butlersquared.com. That's my email. Feel free to email me. I definitely have really, truly enjoyed myself here and just learning so much, because we do need to continue to break generational things that we didn't know about. Like they said, our people lack for the lack of knowledge. And now today you've had the workshop that gives us a wealth of knowledge. And now it's time to make some activations, start doing something with that information. So yeah, I really appreciate being here on today.
Wow, what a way to close out. Thank you all so much. I know that this is a busy weekend for some, and we're looking forward to connecting again. So anyone watching this, just listen out for us. We'll have more events coming up pretty soon. And Shateka, I'm looking forward to that Generational Wealth Symposium again. She throws a great event, so I'm looking forward to seeing each one of us growing in our businesses. So with that, enjoy your weekend, and thank you so much for attending the Financial Management Workshop for Nonprofits and Churches. Thank you.
This was awesome. Thank you so much.